Unbiased Trades here, and today I'm going to be going over why patience and execution is vital in trading. Um, I'll be going into the topic also about like how this week has been going, how my trades have been, and or, like any big issues or strengths I've been doing this week. So let's get into this. So the first thing I want to go over is execution rules. Everyone should have execution rules noted down, categorized into different groups. And I think this is just really, really useful. For ages, I had an issue where I would be entering like way too early, and I still have this issue. Like I don't think issues can just be wiped away quickly, but it's definitely decreased a lot because of these execution rules. The more I remind myself about these execution rules, the more I am thinking about what else I should be looking for, what else I should be, systematically looking at. It's just insanely useful. So these are some groups you can group them in. So you could just have general execution rules. You could have something that's like towards your strategy. So I use J lines from JTrader. I feel like they're very good just for adding some more structure into my trading. Then I have a separate one for a different not equity anyway, but like for futures, because obviously it's different to stocks. And then lastly I have tape and bookmap, and a lot of that is from JTrader and the short bear and Steven Dogs. So like that's I was just trying to show how you could formulate that into different groups about what things you could be looking at. So I think personally the most important, at least for small caps, would be tape and bookmap. I think that's also very important for futures, in my opinion. I think it's if you're trying to kind of scalp or short-term moves on futures where you can't risk that many points unless you're trading like micro contracts, then I think the tape and bookmap can be really, really useful. And just I will read out like an example of what I have for execution rules. So I have confirmations. I want to be waiting for the next 1 minute candle, unless it's like a rejection play on small caps. And then like another one would be that I'm looking for bear flag patterns in a certain setup after a certain time. So that could be one. You could also be using like the 9 EMA for trailing, which is really, really useful in futures and still in small caps. You could be let's say you could be using trend lines. So you would want to have a system of like, okay, where are you drawing your trend lines from? Are you drawing them on the 5 minute, on the 1 minute? Are you making really quick ones, for example, like on Bookmap? Sometimes they can really work well. So these are all these things you should be thinking about. And next, I want to be taking you through a trade I did recently, because I think this trade is really important to show how sizing can actually make a trade really, really good if you have a thesis. So first off, I was undersized here. Also, if you want to see my trades, they're all on Twitter, so like I post them all, and you can keep up to date with me and my trading. So I was shorting into this Fibonacci zone, which I like to short into, and I got in small size because I was, I missed the main move up here, and I was like, okay, I still think this can go lower, so I'm gonna go in small size and still aim for my target, which is the 1 minute of the 72 and 89 EMAs. However, I definitely undersized a lot more. My critical thinking wasn't fast enough, and I definitely sized way too small. I think this trade was like $40 or something, where this should at least be $100 to maybe 150. But that's my bad. Oh, sorry about that. Next, this is really the only mistake on this trade personally for me, was that this entry here, I should have cut it. I didn't know if it was gonna, create a trend line and like reject here, so that's why I was shorting here. And if you watch my stream on the tape, it did look like it could be getting weak around here, especially after we just had this, like, the volume came in pretty much at the end of the candle, which is kind of sucky, but I should have cut this straight away after it broke this high, or at least after it broke here. It was really small size, which I'm happy about. I didn't, before I just jumped the gun and put in way too much size way too quickly, and sizing in definitely helps this issue. Um, but I had the reason to cut it. It broke through all the levels, so obviously it's going now to pre-market highs or even higher. So I don't need any shares down here. It's just not useful. I'm not trading that big size where I have to size in that slowly. It's just, it's not needed. So this was the only mistake really on this trade. Then I started to size in more like 1/3 up here, and then after this crack here, which had a good extension down and had nice selling volume, then I started to like really slam with my size, and I even added more size. So I think I was in technically on this trade for 2R, and my risk was about 221, I believe, or somewhere around there, maybe 219, and I was able to put my risk at 225, even with 2R to make it just about 1.2R like risking. Because I knew if it broke 225, it's probably going to go to the highs, and I'm probably wrong, or I have to short again at the highs, and that's fine, but I wanted to manage my risk. And then I pretty much just took off some and recycled, took off some, recycled, and then held the rest until the lows of my target. So overall, this was a great trade, and it meant that I could make a lot more money on this trade than if I had just, for example, sized in here or sized in here. And both of those trades I think would have been more risky compared to how I traded it here. Definitely wasn't perfect. There's definitely things I can still improve. But this was one of those really good trades and that I've been practicing to size in better. Next, I want to go over this beautiful trade on futures with Bookmap, and just like some things that you can take away from it and some things that I did wrong on it. So we had this huge heat map here of selling pressure coming into the ES, and we see this breakdown, and then we see the breakdown of these lows, and that's pretty much where I wanted to get short. Obviously, this is on a pretty small time frame, so my entries aren't going to be like straight on the top of it, because this is showing you about 5 seconds. So this can be quite a short period of time. But yeah, so I got this entry here, and as you see here, I cut this way too quickly. There is a bit of bid orders here, so white kind of shows you that there's some, blue shows you that there's kind of a very small amount, and then obviously the deeper the colors get, the more orders are there and the liquidity zones. Um, and this is just showing you how you could be using Bookmap to really make structured rules that you're only covering at those kind of more intense liquidity zones, as they are more common to reach there than to reverse. As you can see, we touched this liquidity zone, and then it just bounced up, and then, it still failed, but it definitely had a response to that zone. So this could have been held all the way down here. And then another trade where you can see how useful Bookmap can be is this trade here. So I shorted the breakdown of the slows. It moved very quickly, so sadly I couldn't really get the move. But I shorted, and I instantly started seeing some green coming from this liquidity zone, and I was like, I'm out. Yes, you obviously could hold to 4.542, but that's a bit optimistic, and it's not really a very viable option here, especially as we're now kind of trending up. But yeah, so these are kind of the trades I wanted to show you today, and just how you should be thinking about execution rules and patience and liquidity zones all in your trading, and having those mixed together with your setup to just make your setup more efficient and make more confirmations for why you are taking that trade. And hopefully, for me anyway, reducing the impulse trades. That's been my biggest flaw overall, is that I'll take impulse trades, I'll lose on them, then I'll get emotional, and then I just spiral. So the more I can make my trades structured, the more things I have to think about before I take that trade, the less likely I will be to just impulse and randomly go into it, because my brain's telling me, hey, you haven't checked for all these things, or like this doesn't look like how you normally trade. So yeah, obviously it takes time. I'm not perfect. I still got a long way to go, but these are just some things I'm thinking about at the moment. So thank you for watching.